Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. I hate it when family members take advantage of you. I would have gotten petty and told her she could no longer use the wall. When they say good walls make good neighbors, this is not what they mean. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss a new video every single day. I cost a company $3.9 million in back pay. Although I've always felt proud of what I did, I've never really told anyone about it. Today, I remembered reporting this company to HMRC and that it cost them a pretty penny, but I never before thought to check their financial reports. It reads, events since the end of year. Subsequent to the balance sheet date, additional payroll liabilities totaling $3,884,081 relating to periods prior to the balance sheet data been, SIC, identified. Consequently, these liabilities have been recognized in these financial statements. Prior year adjustment. The comparative figures for the year ended 31 October 2013 have been restated in order to correct a fundamental error relating to additional payroll liabilities not previously recognized. The effect of this restatement on the results of the prior year is a decrease in profit after tax of $1,508,673. The report goes on to post a loss of $1,760,837 for that year, which, as far as I can tell, is the only year they haven't turned a profit. I'll try to explain the problem in a simplified way. The company was hiding a processing fee in our wage slips that was a percentage of our wages, so that it not only meant we weren't being paid the contracted amount, we weren't even receiving minimum wage. The fee wasn't actually mentioned in the wage slips, but it was secretly deducted from our wages during the tax calculations by removing a tax-exempt amount prior to taxes, but then adding a smaller amount after taxes without declaring a fee or deduction had been taken. This way, no one except me seems to have noticed. I feel like I did everything right, even by them, in reporting this. I raised a grievance with them and went to their head office to discuss it in my free time. I brought a union rep with me, but the rep was a certified idiot and basically told me it's perfectly legal to pay less than minimum wage. I requested a replacement, but was told he was more than qualified and I was wrong. I therefore cannot recommend against joining GMB strongly enough. Anyway, so I explained the problem to the company and they denied there was one. We had a total of 3 meetings and they would not budge, so I reported them to HMRC, who deal with minimum wage violations. I then filed an employment tribunal claim and left the company. The HMRC investigation did not conclude until after I'd settled my claim and quit, but they informed me that the company had indeed violated minimum wage laws and would be required to pay back pay to all current and previous employees. At the time, I did a back-of-napkin calculation and estimated it around $2 million. The true figure, it turns out, is almost double that. Before I quit, I got an email from the company to the staff telling us that they were no longer applying for our tax exemption because HMRC had told them they couldn't. Of course, all HMRC had actually told them was they couldn't charge a fee for doing this, so I assume this move was more of a revenge move, as it's not like they actually gain anything from it. I felt like posting this because I see a lot of despondent posts here, people quitting or putting up with it when their employer's breaking the law. It genuinely makes me angry when workers put up with clearly illegal treatment. People like that are the reason employers get away with it. Employers need to suffer the consequences or things are never going to change. So I want people to know that you can fight and you can win. The laws are there and they're enforced. Whether it's the US, UK, or EU, governments do not F around when it comes to minimum wage violations. But no matter what the complaint is, if there's a law your employer is breaking, it's your responsibility to make sure they suffer the consequences. In the future, this is what I'm going to answer when potential employers ask about my proudest moment or greatest achievement. If they don't like it, they're not the kind of company I want to work for. And our second story. Just use what you have. Back when I graduated college, there were very few jobs available in my field, so I applied for and landed a contractual job with the state government. It was mostly a clerical position with lots of typing involved, at the end of which I knew Microsoft Word and Excel well enough to call them family. The pay was good enough considering the work and the fact that I was posted in my own city, so there was no need for me to move anywhere. Besides, the contract renewed every year with a raise in salary. The computers we were assigned for the job were surprisingly good, but anything will break down when used too often. I should probably mention that I graduated with a degree in engineering and have been into computers since I was 11. So for the most part, I could fix any software and even some hardware issue that hindered my work. The resident IT god, self-proclaimed, Bhaskar, hated me for that. Was it because I wasn't as dependent on him as the others in the office and he had an inferiority complex? Or maybe he just didn't like the look of my face, I'll never know. But I was always met with a, "Why don't you fix it yourself?" whenever I approached him with a difficult issue, so mostly I did. 8 months into my second term, my keyboard died. It was your typical membrane keyboard with typical membrane keyboard issues, which meant once a key stopped working, you threw out the entire keyboard and got a new one. For me, it wasn't just one key, it was the entire R3 row, which means that all the keys from tab all the way to 9 on the numpad just stopped working one day. When it comes to typing, that row's particularly important, so like a sane person, I went to Mr. IT God to request a new one. "My keyboard's dead. I would like a new one, please." "Fix it yourself," was the reply, as expected. "Yeah, I'd like to, but this is a hardware issue. The keyboard's dead." "There are no extra keyboards. Just use what you have," he said. This as there was literally a stack of new keyboards behind his desk. I knew this was going nowhere, and I wouldn't get a new keyboard from this guy, so I just left. I was now in a dilemma. I need to do the work they were paying me to do, and I couldn't do it with a broken keyboard. I could have just bought a new membrane keyboard. They're pretty cheap. But why should I spend my money on stuff my office should give me for free? Besides, I had a point to make. So I drove home, picked up one of my most annoying personal keyboards, and drove right back. My keyboard was mechanical. I could type faster on it. It had rainbow vomit, and it was loud. I plugged it into my office computer and got to work. Needless to say, chaos ensued. Word soon spread about the guy who had connected a typewriter to his computer. Apparently they could hear me typing over in the next apartment. People soon gathered around to watch me type. This is a small city in India. Most of these people were technologically illiterate. They'd never seen a mechanical keyboard before. This led to a disruption in the workflow of the office, and so one of the higher-ups came over to investigate. He saw me typing loudly and came over to talk. Let's call him Borthakar, because that's his name. Borthakar, what is this, a typewriter? Me, no sir, this is my keyboard. I brought it from home. Borthakar, this is not standard issue. What happened to the one you were given? Me, sir, it's broken, so I'm using this. Borthakar, if your keyboard's broken, you should have asked Bhaskar for a new one. You shouldn't bring personal stuff from home for use in the office. Me, sir, I asked him for one and he told me he doesn't have any extra hardware and to use what I have. This is what I have. Borthakar, come on, let's go over and have a talk with him. Bring your broken keyboard. And off we went to Mr. IT God's office. Borthakar, is it true you've refused a replacement keyboard for Mr. Snap? Bhaskar, he fixes all his computer problems himself. He can probably fix this too. Borthakar, you know full well he can't fix a broken keyboard. Give him a new one. Bhaskar, there are none available. Borthakar then turned to me. How much does your personal keyboard cost? Me. This one cost me $150, I think. Why do you ask? Borthakar, I will write you a check for $150 and deduct that from the IT department's budget. How's that sound, Bhaskar? This is ridiculous. Our keyboards cost $2. Bhaskar shouted as he picked up a new keyboard box to show him the price. So you do have replacements available, Borthakar said. I don't know why you're refusing him a new one, but you better give it to him now. Needless to say, I had a new keyboard before the hour was over. I refused a contract renewal and left that job 3 months later. And our last story. Don't let your neighbor use your property to build their house, even if they are family. Our house is on a large parcel of land that has a mainish road along the front of it. My wife gave her sister a piece of land along the road next to our house. Imagine a large rectangle. The top left corner has a square cut out in it. This is the land that we gave to her sister. Anyway, we're on a laid-back island, and it took her ages to build and finish her house, like years. She'd asked if she could use the wall of our property. not of our house, as a side wall of her house, my wife had said yes. Duh. The property's on a slope and her house is a bit higher up than ours, important for after. So for the longest time ever, the sister had all the walls built in cinder block but nothing else. No roof, no doors or windows. She has 3 emplacements for the windows on the shared wall, i.e. 3 big holes. I started to bug her to fit windows in as anybody could look into my property and more importantly jump from her holes into my land. Maybe 2.5 meter drop, so a possibility. We live in the countryside and the people are very nice, but mainly of modest means. So a peek through the windows or holes was a common occurrence, like once a week when she was showing off her soon-to-be house to look at the big nice house, ours. But mainly it was a security concern to me as robberies are not unheard of, insurance inexistent, police corrupt and understaffed. In those days, it's changed for the better, thankfully. As she lived in mother-in-law's house across the road, I would hint often on the issue to no avail. Then gave up the hints and asked her to either install the windows ASAP or board up the holes. Fell on deaf ears. Then told her to solve the problem. She got all huffy and puffy and told me it was my problem. Remember, it's my wall and she was building on property we gifted her. My problem? Okay then. I have concrete block-built flower beds running along the shared wall and all other property walls, perhaps 1.5 meters deep, so I built U-shaped walls in front of her windows as to not completely wall her off. So now she has a concrete wall 50 centimeters from her windows on that side of the house. The funny thing is, a few months after I built the wall, she got her windows fitted in, but I still left the wall up. Much better privacy-wise. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.